Listening to the IFF TV podcast.
Hello and welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron from Próxima Jornada. Now, Aaron is a Scouser and he's an Evertonian, and I only found this out as we joined the chat, but he runs a very successful Twitter page called Próxima Jornada, and I'm going to just get the handle for it there. So it's at Próxima Jornada 1, so make sure you go follow it as well. Aaron, I suppose people are going to be wondering why a Scouser is talking about all things Portugal on this video before we get into it. So do you want to explain to them first before we get into it, and then we'll get the lowdown on Portugal ahead of Thursday's big game?
Yeah, it's first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, it's a very common question, especially when I'm in Portugal, speaking to Portuguese people, and they hear the accents, and they can't quite piece it together. So Portuguese football, firstly, the national team was something like, as a child, they were just a team that I gravitated towards. Watching the European Championships as a kid, Euro 2004 was the first real one. I think I just fell in love with that collection of players. And then at the same time, Jose Mourinho was obviously the manager of Porto in the Champions League, won that. They were the same players that were playing for the national team as well, the likes of Ricardo Carvalho and players like that. And then as I sort of got older, it was always something that stuck with me, and frequented Portugal back and forth as much as I could. And I never intended to start writing about Portuguese football. It was always just a hobby, something that I watched. And then I felt like there was a space really for some good quality journalism. So we're over on that website as well, proxima-jornada.com. So there's articles, interviews, scout reports, all that kind of thing. The kind of thing I wanted to read sort of growing up and even, as an adult. And that's pretty much the story of it. It was love at first sight, and it never really left.
Yeah, well, I actually had a look at your website today. It's actually very good. So as well, anyone who's listening to this or watching this, make sure you go and check it out after the video. Aaron was kind enough to let me know that he was going to join me tonight. I know I'm kind of rushing because I've got football training, but Aaron, I suppose we're going into a big game. The last game ended so dramatically. I suppose from your point of view, you're probably delighted. From our point of view, it was absolutely horrendous. Just the way it ended, we felt like the ref was giving us absolutely nothing in that game. How did you feel about it? Firstly, before we get into this time around, sorry.
It was a tough game. I mean, even with the 2 goals at the end, it was still disappointing the way the game went. The fact that it needed those 2 late goals at the end, and obviously the missed penalty in the first half. And yeah, I thought Ireland were brilliant, especially to be honest, for the most part of the game. I thought the wing backs played really well. Portugal didn't really have that pace to try and pin back those wing backs. And I felt at times our midfield was a little bit overrun. João Palhinha was sometimes on his own with obviously that quartet of attacking players, sort of a free license to do what they will. Maybe underestimated Ireland a little bit, I think, in terms of going with that approach. So it's a valuable lesson in terms of that game was by far the most difficult of Portugal's recent games. The games against the likes of Qatar, they don't really tell us anything about Portugal. They don't tell Fernando Santos really anything that he doesn't already know about the squad. But I think he will be looking at that first game against Ireland and addressing some of those issues to make sure that Portugal do get a better result. Because although they got the win, the eyes will all be on the Serbia game really, because that's the big one in terms of where they finish in the group. So whether or not Portugal draw or win against Ireland, the job still needs to be done against Serbia. So I think this time around, maybe try and hit Ireland, try and come out the blocks a little bit quicker, and get a couple of goals and maybe make it a little bit easier for themselves, make those changes. As we were speaking off air before, there's quite a few players who we'll get to who are on one yellow card away from suspension, and so it'll definitely be a tough test. And this time around, it's in, as you said, the Aviva Stadium. It's in Ireland. I think will this be the first time Ireland have played in front of a full house since maybe before COVID? I think so.
Yeah,
it'll be packed. Yeah, so definitely won't be taking this one lightly, and I think the lessons will have to have been learned from that first game.
Yeah, well, actually, I just pulled up your tweet there that you had put out. I think it was about earlier on today, just 20-5. João Cancelo, Ruben Diaz, Jose Font, João Palhinha, Renato Sanchez, Diogo Jota are all one yellow away from missing the last group game. So do you think that they will be not dropped, but like maybe rested?
To be honest, I don't think they all will. Namely because Portugal's best centre half pairing on paper is Pep and Ruben Diaz. If you change one of those, it's usually for Jose Font. He's also one of the players who's one yellow card away. So both of your central defenders going into that Serbia game, if one of those gets a yellow card, it'll be tough. But then who else do you play? Danilo Pereira's been called up as well. He's a defensive midfielder who's currently at Paris Saint-Germain. But he's not a natural centre-half. But maybe if they decide to give one of those players a rest, maybe put him alongside Pep. But I don't see Diaz being rested, to be honest. And then as for the others, the attacking options, it's a little bit easier to rotate. The fact that Diogo Jota's one yellow card away, maybe not start, but he'll probably play some part in the game. But then you've also got the likes of Ronaldo, who's safe to play, João Felix, Gonçalo Guedes. So it's it's not the end of the world for Portugal, but it's definitely something for them to keep an eye on. João Palhinha, who I mentioned, who started in that first game, who's been in brilliant form last season and this season. He'll be a big miss if he managed to get himself a yellow card. And then also at left back, there's a player missing in Nuno Mendes, who's also at Paris Saint-Germain. He's actually suspended for this game because of the accumulation of yellow cards. So it's not ideal for Portugal at the moment. Bernardo Silva didn't train today at all because of muscle discomfort. So again, does that maybe put pressure on Fernando Santos to put someone like Diogo Jota in the side, who is obviously one yellow card away? So yeah, Portugal aren't coming in this with, in an ideal circumstance, looking ahead at the Serbia game. But I suppose that's Fernando Santos' job, is to be able to pick the right players and get the balance right, first and foremost.
Well, I just say from an Irish point of view, I'm delighted that Bernardo Silva is, he's suffering for now. I hope he comes back and does well against Serbia. He's beat Serbia, that all goes well. But from an Irish point of view, I would love to see him play at the same time. But obviously, if any sort of disadvantage for Portugal is our advantage, is what we will be hoping for. But then again, you look around, you've got, I didn't think Bruno Fernandes was particularly good in the reverse fixture. I was expecting better. I was thankful as well that he wasn't, I suppose, up to it on the day. Ronaldo, up until the last few minutes, but he's just weird, like, so
that's him, isn't it?
In the nicest way possible. He's just weird because he can win you a game. Like, people call him an alien and stuff like that, just because he can just win you a game from nothing, like, and he just never gives up. And it's such an advantage to have a Superman like him in your team, that regardless, like, look at him for Manchester United since some of those games, scoring late goals to help Manchester United, and he's basically kept Solskjaer in a job throughout that period. So I suppose even if Portugal are missing those players, they still have absolutely world-class players throughout the team. And I think from Ireland's point of view, yes, it'll be good if some of them are rested, but I think what Portugal have and what Ireland don't have is that strength and depth in the squad.
Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment. I think what people are maybe underestimating, especially in the Portuguese press, and from what I've saw online, is that not demeaning this fixture in terms of the significance of it, but because obviously the big one is against Serbia. But I think one of the important things about this Ireland game is confidence, because I think if Portugal end up getting a bad result, drop points, even if it's a draw, going into the Serbia game, then knowing, right, they should have it in their heads that they've got to go and win the game anyway. But I just think a win against Ireland and a good win at that, if they can manage it, going into that game, because Serbia have finished, they've only got one more game left, and that's against Portugal. They're currently 1 point ahead. So if Portugal beat Ireland, they can go into the game against Serbia knowing that a draw will do them. And as we saw in 2016, and to some people's anger and frustration, is that Fernando Santos, the one thing you have to credit him for is he can be pragmatic, and he knows how to get results if needed. We've saw it time and time again. And if he goes into that game knowing that a draw is good enough, then they can set out to win the game. But no, deep down in that knowledge that we just come off the back of a good result against Ireland. But I do think if there's if it's a bit of a catastrophe, especially if Ireland get, like last time, get a first half goal, get an early goal, then no, they don't have nothing. They don't have to really come out. They'd be awful for Portugal, because then not only are you then trying to get a win, but the players are then overexerting themselves and they're really trying to go for it, which then feeds into the Serbia game, and they won't want to do that. They'll want to try and blitz Ireland as much as they can in terms of just straight away go as quick as they can to begin with and get it over and done with, really. And that's easier said than done, especially against a side who I think Ireland under Kenny, the manager, is looking disciplined, they're looking defensively organised. They seem to be, you obviously know a lot more than I do, but they seem to be set on this formation now. It looks like going forward it'll be the back three with the wing backs, and especially if they need to hold the lead against a side like Portugal, those wing backs who can play as full backs, as we know, Seamus Coleman, and whether it's Matt Doherty on the other side, they can slot in alongside those three central defenders and make five, the midfielders. So I do think it'll be easier said than done. We saw last time just how tough of a game it was, but I think it is imperative that Portugal start strong, to be honest, and start quick.
Yeah, well, I think the key factor for this game that will work in Ireland's advantage is the full house. It's the fact that there's such a buzz around this game, and a lot of people in Ireland support Manchester United. There's things going around that people are just going to watch Ronaldo, and probably Bruno as well. But I would like to think that those fans would be cheering for Ireland rather than Ronaldo. That's what I would hope.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's a lot of Irish within the Portuguese end as well. So I'm hopeful that the Irish crowd could obviously get the players up for. They did against Serbia, and Serbia found it really hard to play out. And I actually think Serbia are quite a decent team, and probably have been performing better than Portugal. The only thing I would say about the game against Serbia is obviously Portugal should have it in their heads for revenge for obviously Ronaldo's disallowed goal over there. That was ridiculous.
It was an absolute travesty. I mean, the less said about that, the better, to be honest. I mean, these
I actually felt for you.
You end up now in this position knowing that, that you've got to go for it, and this game means a lot more now as a result. But it's one of those things. It's in the past. It's happened now. They've just got to get their heads on these two games. And I mean, to be honest, from a Portuguese perspective, the one thing that I'm looking forward to be honest, is seeing the team and seeing what Fernando Santos decides to do. Does he go with similar lineups in both games and just fingers crossed that no one does anything stupid, or does he massively alterate, which then could be at the detriment of Portugal? I mean, as you say, there's a lot of depth there, but yeah, players have just been dropping out. 3 more players dropped out yesterday. Rafa Silva, the winger, someone who gives Portugal a different dimension that they don't really have, is that sort of pacing behind, and that a real out-and-out winger. Obviously, Pedro Neto is still out, so he's been replaced by Gonçalo Guedes, who's been in good form for Valencia, but that's that's a difficult one. And then Anthony Lopez as well, the goalkeeper, is out. He may have played in one of those games and played Rui Patricio in the other one. Pretty much, I mean, he's the number one, but they're both capable keepers. So Jose Sá's being called up, the Wolves keeper, and I forget who the third player is who's dropped out. The reason why I forget is because he hasn't been. No, it was someone else. Oh, João Mario, the midfielder, central midfielder for Benfica. But the reason why I forgot is he hasn't
set up
been.
Ronaldo for one of the goals last time, the late one.
Possibly, yeah, might have been. Yeah, the crosser. But he hasn't been replaced. Fernando Santos hasn't called up anyone to replace him, so they've went from having 26 men in the squad to 25. Don't know why, but we'll see. So I am looking forward to it, to be honest. Should be, a cracking atmosphere, as you say. And I think if Portugal can try and use that to their advantage in terms of the one thing I was thinking was with Ireland playing after so long in front of, in a low capacity or empty stadium, they're now got the fans behind them. Will the fans sort of will them to have a little bit more of the ball and be a bit more advantageous and try and come out a bit, which for Portugal, that's what they want. They want Ireland as high up on the pitch as they can to try and get in behind. Usually when you're the home team, not saying that Ireland are going to outpossession Portugal. That's, I think being realistic, that's not going to happen in the last game. They had 73% possession or something. But will being at home mean that Ireland do want to have a little bit more of the ball and be brave? And as I say, from what I've seen from Kenny as a manager, is he wants to try and play sort of the right way, and he's quite tactically flexible. He's got a good background in terms of where he's managed and the things that he's done up to now. So it'll be an interesting one. I'm actually really looking forward to this. The Serbia game is the one that I can't even bother to think about at the minute. That's the one I'm not looking forward to whatsoever, but have to play it.
Yeah, well, I'm actually, just because you've came out with all this information that a lot of players are missing and stuff like that, it has me a slight bit optimistic. But this game actually doesn't mean anything for Ireland because it won't obviously affect our standing. We might climb a few places and that'll be it, but there'll be no qualifying or nothing in it regarding that. But the only thing it would do is for Stephen Kenny and his contract is obviously because games before the last international window were just results just weren't coming, despite the fact that we probably played better football than ever, but we just didn't score the goal. The other team maybe got the goal or got a lucky break and we weren't getting the lucky break. But now if we seem to have turned a slight bit of a corner, so I'm actually interested to see how we get on. We don't seem to have that many problems. I think the only real issue with someone being out was Aaron Connolly. I know he caused you problems last time getting in behind. We don't really have it, as you said about I think it was Silva, is that player who can get in behind and cause those problems. I don't think Ireland have that player this time around, so I don't think you'll have that threat of Connolly getting in. And there's a lot of people in Ireland that don't think Connolly's that good. I actually think he's really good, but his finishing just needs a bit of working on and that composure in the box. But looking around the rest of it, I know Callum Robinson's been in really good form for Ireland and West Brom, so I'd be hoping that he can get a goal, but it's too hard to tell because I never thought we'd take the lead away from home that time when we did and held on for so long, ultimately to be beaten. I mean, if you were to say to me now it finished 1-1, I'd take that, and I think you'd probably take that as well going into the Serbia game. You just need the win then, I suppose, and with Ronaldo's tail up after the disallowed goal, I'm sure he'll be up for it more than anybody to make sure he gets revenge on them. Definitely, you can make sure of that, because one of the most dangerous things in football is a motivated Cristiano Ronaldo, and it's not very often that he's not motivated. So yeah, it's all just things that add to the narrative. But yeah, I think results wise, just want to make sure that they get through this game with no scrapes, no new injuries, and also the lads on yellow cards don't put themselves in risk of missing the Serbia game, because I say some massive names. We had to go to the Euros without the likes of João Cancelo, and if he's there, I think Portugal beat Belgium and advance to the next round. So did well to get out of the group. Form at the moment too. He's ridiculous. Him and Bernardo are both just can't describe them at the moment. Just running out of superlatives. The fact that he can play on both sides. You think going into this game with Nuno Mendes out and also
Rafael Guerreiro, the Borussia Dortmund left back, he's not in the squad either. So Joao Cancelo would be the left back. Yeah, who's a right back, and then obviously you then have Diogo Dalot playing as a right back who isn't playing for Manchester United. So straight away you're thinking you've got one right back playing left back who's also one yellow card away from missing Serbia, and then on the other flank you've got someone who hasn't played much for United. So it's not ideal. So there's an opportunity there for Ireland. I think it's just going to be clinical enough to take it, because chances will probably be few and far between. But if they can punish Portugal, make the night so much worse for Fernando Santos, definitely.
Yeah, but I think we have the fear that, you know, if anytime Ronaldo's in and around the box, is always the danger he could get on something. And Fernandez as well, on his day, he's as good as anyone he wants to be as well. So you just have so much talent in that squad, regardless of players being missing or anything like that. Like, once you said Bernardo Silva, it was like, oh yeah, and then you go, oh yeah, actually they have him. And you're just like, But like in your case, I think it's about not losing, I suppose, and then taking whatever momentum into Sunday, and then you'll have some of the players maybe back as well. So I think, may the best man win. And listen, I want to say thanks very much for taking the time out to join us and giving us the inside information, because I know there's going to be a lot of fans who are probably going to be, after watching this, a little bit more optimistic going into the game Thursday. Maybe we raise their voice that little bit extra to try and help the team get over the line. So Aaron, where is at Próxima Jornada 1 on Twitter, and your website is, I'll let you say it,
Proxima-jornada.com, and then we've also got a podcast.
Instagram?
No, not on Instagram. We're on all streaming services, so we're on Spotify, Apple Music, all that. I just type in Próxima Jornada. There's some interviews on there, and then we do a weekly show, the Portuguese football show. So that just wraps up all the players playing abroad, and obviously the ones in Portugal as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely give us a follow.
100%. Well, I'll give it a follow for sure. That sounds good to me. But yeah, Aaron, listen, enjoy the game, and I'm sure I'll be keeping an eye on your Twitter and that over the course of the next few days as well, to see any other updates. So thanks again, and take care.
No problem. Take care. Cheers, mate.